So, welcome to Discovery Creativity. Today we will be talking about encouraging innovation in Denmark. And our guest is Christian. Hi Christian, how are you?
Hello, hello. Thank you for inviting me in.
Thank you. How's the weather in Denmark?
Today it's actually lovely.
Okay.
It's been a not too good summer with in terms of sunny weather, but today has been lovely, very sunny, and I think 26 degrees, something like that.
Oh, that's pretty good. I think we are 26 here too. Okay.
Uh,
Okay,
but
so
that's unusual for this time. It's uh,
oh,
it's starting to become autumn here.
warmer?
No, autumn,
Autumn.
like
Oh yeah.
colder, more windy, more rainy.
Okay.
It's
So
the period.
you need a jacket in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Christian, so thank you for joining us. Please, could you tell us a bit about yourself so everybody gets to know you a little bit more here?
Yes, of course. So I am a professor at Vilnius University Business School, where I study creativity, and I've studied creativity for the last 18 years, actually a little bit more, because at the time I was a student, I discovered that Malta, University of Malta, the little island between Europe and Africa, had a program on creativity. So while I was studying my master programs, I went to visit there for half a year to study on their program. It was called the Edward de Bono Institute at the university. So about 19, 20 years of studying creativity. I live in Denmark, but previously I lived in Spain, and my main job is in Vilnius, Lithuania. But I also do quite a lot of consultancy, keynote speaks and stuff around the world.
Okay. So you speak Spanish?
Not too well. I would prefer this interview in English. I've always had a difficult with languages.
Okay.
I even English I was in my early 20s before I started just the basic of English, getting it, and I moved to London to study part of my bachelor, and that was where I got it. So language is not at all a strong area for me.
Okay, well, your English is awesome. Okay, so back to the topic. So the main idea of this podcast is creativity, discovering creativity. And because of your background, the first question for you it would be, could you? Sometimes we feel far from experiencing a close situation where we face a problem or a blockage with being creative, and because of from all your experience, could you please share a complex challenge you have faced, probably with a community or a group of people, where innovative thinking gave or helped the situation to have a better outcome? Do I have to repeat it?
Yeah, I actually understand. I fully
Okay,
understand.
yeah.
Okay. I'll take a quite simple one,
Okay.
and I hope you can follow it. So it's I was working with a zoological garden, with wild animals in
Okay.
captivity,
Issue. Okay.
lions, elephants, giraffes, stuff like that. And in the zoo, they had a cart. When you enter the zoo, you can borrow a cart, and you can put your kids into it, or a case of beer, or some snacks and stuff. And then you bring the cart around in the zoo. And then when you leave the zoo, you bring it back. They wanted to challenge some of the cart traditions. One was that you would give a deposit to get it, and you'll get the deposit back when you leave. And another one was about some issues they had when they don't charge the deposit, that people don't bring them back. So they just leave them around in the zoo park. So we had, at the time, it's quite a few years ago, we had a network of smaller organizations in the local area around this zoo. And they met roughly once a month. One or two people from each organization to use each other's competencies and perspectives from different industries to solve each other's complex problems. And the zoo brought this problem during one of these meetups. And then in the network, in the innovation network, there was a bus planning company, and it's been a while ago. So at the time, they were putting GPSs in the buses, so they had this overview of where the buses were, and they could put up these signs saying 2 minutes until the bus arrives, 1 minute till the bus arrives, and so forth. Communication system. So they got this idea together with the bus planning company, to put in GPSs into the cars in the zoo. And then around the table was also a communication guy from a local municipality. And he got this idea about if we get the GPSs, we can add speakers. And the card could tell interesting stories about the animals along the ride. So not just those who would borrow the cards, but everyone around them would hear stories about lions when they were around the lions, stories about the giraffes when they come to the giraffes, if there was somebody with a card near the giraffes when they were arrived. And of course, they could always borrow a card themselves, so they could get the stories. And the interesting thing in Denmark, the zoo gets state support to provide general information about animals to the public. So this would be one of their main goals. And finally, to get it back to the original problem, then of course you get this story around in the park, and it would be told to the children, because it was primarily people who had children who could borrow these cards. And the stories would be in children voice, different tracks. So if you stay longer at the lions, it would be longer. If you stay short time, it would instantly move on to the next track about giraffes or whatever the next was. And then when you got to the end, there was a sign on the card saying, the story won't stop before you hand it back to the exit point. And then the stories would have to be so good that the kids would demand to hear the end of the story. And then the parents would have to bring it back, otherwise it would never end. It would be an endless, never-ending story. So I know it's a little bit long story, but it's a quite interesting idea, because it had so many interesting aspects from different organizations, and also solves the problem partly by bringing in an added value to the customers also. Did it make sense?
It does. I love it, because sometimes we think about, we think differently. We don't allow that idea to, we don't accept the idea that we can actually, how can I say it? Sorry. It can sound very simple sometimes. Not saying this is simple, but it works. And sometimes we don't give the chance to that new idea. And it might work. That's what I think. To put it into something very simple for us, and that's a really good experience. Can
I just comment on that?
Yeah.
Because I actually like your point that very often we have this perception that creative ideas are wild, they are fluffy, and they are advanced, very expensive, very complex to implement. But my experience is that creativity often brings us to the ideas, those kind of like, why have we never thought about that before?
Mm-hmm.
Type of ideas. And they don't need to be very complex. They don't need to be very expensive or very big or hard to implement. Most of the time, the best ideas I've seen, they challenge our current understanding, or they take us to a new perspective. And sometimes it's just right there in front of us. Why didn't we just do this before? It's simple. Of course, sometimes it requires new technologies, or it makes use of new technologies that have not been used in that industry before, or it requires investment. But it's very often it's about being open-minded and curious while exploring the potential of the idea, and not too judgmental at the beginning. Like when you start putting GPSs in to the card, you might think this is weird, where is this going? But staying open-minded and trying to play with it, and when the speaker comes in, it suddenly makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And I skip a very interesting question. Christian, when did you discover you were very creative and you wanted to foster other people in Denmark to help them with their creativity and innovation. I mean,
I don't think I discovered that I was very creative, but I discovered I was studying innovation, a master program on innovation, and there was one lecture actually only on creativity on that master program. When I was sitting in that lecture, I suddenly had this feeling that this is it. This is the most interesting thing I've tried in the whole, like since I started studying. And I even started out studying computer science. So I've been a little bit around business and stuff like that, business studies also. Um, and then I just knew it, that I had to find somewhere to go deeper into that. And then I went to Malta. There were a few other places around the world, at Buffalo State University. Yeah, today there are more places, but at the time there wasn't many places to go. And there I had an experience. It was very applied at the University of Malta. So I think if you ask it like that, then I didn't have the experience that I was very creative, but I got insights on how to become very creative whilst I was studying in Malta. And I tried to conceptualize it into training programs, educational materials, process methods, organizational models, and stuff like that along the way to communicate to others how they can become creative.
okay. And
So it's been around 19 years ago, in short.
wow, yeah. And do you have any tools that would you like to share with us about how to encourage our brain to think differently and to start being more creative? I mean, because I notice sometimes we don't allow ourselves to get out of the box, to think out of the box. So, or we don't know how to start, because we might think being creative is art, it's painting, it's, I don't know, something that seems pretty far away from someone that likes math. No, I don't know. Just saying, because I have my students, or Spanish, I don't know. So which tools could you share with us that anybody can start doing to start thinking more creatively?
Yeah. So first, before I answer that, I would like to start off with my key focus in my research. So, no, I'll start off. The first 6-7 years of my research, my interest in creativity, was focused around process methods and creativity techniques. Like, how do you temporarily, let's say 2 hours, 1 hour, 5 minutes, 5 days, temporarily enhance creativity and then go back to normal afterwards? That is something tools are very effective in doing, for example. But most of my career, I focused on how do you, not just temporary, but how do you develop creativity as a skill set, as a confidence, as a culture in a team also, as a set of structures and support systems in an organization also. So I would say my best recommendation is not to use a specific technique, but rather to get around a lot of different techniques, but also to integrate it into your routines, to practice it on your own, and to practice it with the colleagues you would like to be creative with, so that you get it becomes more natural for you to be creative, and you become confident being creative alone and with others, and you get to know each other, creative strengths and weaknesses, and as creative, inspiring people. Having said that, coming back to the tool, I think I once reviewed a paper that kind of tried to get an overview of the, let's call them ideation techniques, or the techniques for getting quickly some ideas, or more a different type of ideas. And in this paper, the authors had identified more than 100 different techniques for doing so, and tried to categorize them by their means of working and stuff like that. I don't think there are some tools that are superior than others. So this is my personal preference. My personal preference is to use inspiration from industries, professions, technologies or objects, but most importantly, industries and professions where they might have similar problems, but because of profession, regulation, culture, they have come to different types of solutions. Let me give you two examples, maybe, or at least one. I'll start with one, and let's see if it makes sense. A very, very simple one. Imagine you are trying to rethink how to serve ice cream. So the standard ways of serving ice cream may be on a stick, this wooden stick, plastic, and then the ice cream is on top, or in a cone where you put scoops of ice cream in, or in a glass bowl, or maybe there are a few more, but these are the standard ones you would serve ice cream. And let's say you're a company, you would like to invent new ways of serving ice cream. You're trying to explore new opportunities, new added value, and stuff like that. Then it's very simple if you can look for other industries and professions who have similar problems like containing semi-liquids, handing it over to customers, keeping it cold, these kind of things. So if we keeping it cold may not be a big issue because the stick and the cone and the glass bowl is not really keeping it very cold. So if we take that out, then, for example, if you take a toothpaste tube, when you want to brush your teeth, you take the toothpaste, you squeeze it, and out comes a little bit of toothpaste, sometimes too much, but you learn to handle it. And then you put it on a toothbrush and you start brushing. All right? Imagine you get inspiration from that and say, hey, let's serve ice cream in toothpaste-like containers, and then bring along a toothbrush. So let's say you go to an ice cream shop and you say, I would like this licorice ice cream, and then they put it into this toothpaste tube, and you get it with this toothbrush. And then you walk around eating it, like taking a little bit out on the toothbrush, getting it around, and you eat it, and you take a little bit more. Maybe you share it with somebody. They have a different toothbrush for their servings. The interesting, of course, it totally is crazy idea, wildfire out idea in many ways. But there are some interesting aspects about it. For example, you distribute the ice cream far more even in your mouth. So it's not a spoon where you go like this, and then it quickly goes down to your stomach. It goes everywhere. You can put it everywhere, and everywhere you have some taste senses. It will feel like an explosion of taste. Maybe you eat far less ice cream when you get it served this way, because you taste it far more. Maybe there's some dentists who get angry, but at least this interesting thing about getting far more taste out of the ice cream you get in your body is an interesting aspect. And maybe it's not the toothpaste solution, but working on from there, it's an interesting starting point. Let me give you another example, a quicker one, hopefully. Imagine a clothing store, like H&M. Do you have H&M, Hennes and Mauritz? Yeah, okay. Imagine something like that, where there's a lot of clothes, a bigger clothing store. And they want to take up the challenge again on online shopping for clothes. And one of the areas they want to challenge is how you try out your clothes. So you imagine this little room you go into, and you take off some of your clothes and put on the one you're going to try, and you look into the mirror. That's standard ways of trying out clothes in most clothing stores. But they want to challenge that. And then they go, look, okay, in any other industry where they have a similar problem trying it out, the interesting, when you look in other industries, you have to take out the object. Again, clothes. It's not clothing. It's just trying out anything. Then it's easier to move around in other industries and professions and see how do they try out their stuff. And in a furniture store like IKEA, a big furniture store, a global furniture store, they use showrooms. They make these themed showrooms. So there are maybe 10 different kitchens, 8 different bathrooms, 7 different bedrooms, 6 different children bedrooms, and so forth. So they have these theme rooms, and each room is different, unique, and you can easily imagine how you wish your child's bedroom would be like, or maybe you find one that is quite similar to the one they already have. And then you bring a chair you're thinking about buying into that room and see how does it fit with the colors, the wood or the material, and then you can more easily see if it works. Now, taking the theme showrooms into a clothing store, we don't need the bedrooms, the kitchen stuff. We need something related to where we want to use the clothes. So sometimes we buy clothes for going to office. So there should be a little area in the clothing store where it's designed as an office, like a white long table, strong white light, maybe a whiteboard and stuff like that. And if you want to try out some clothes you think about going to the office with, you go to that corner, sit at the desk, look into the mirrors. How do I look if I sit at a meeting or a work desk? And maybe there's another corner in the clothing store with dimmed light, a little bit darker, high chairs, maybe a disco ball, and then some drinks on, maybe not real, but something that looks like drinking drinks on the walls. And you look into the mirrors when you sit there thinking about how do I look like going out in town in this clothes? And now you can build up these themed areas in the clothing store to give the better experience of how you look like in the real themed showrooms. Does it make sense?
Yeah, totally. Because now you can, for example, for me at the school, you're giving me the idea of start thinking of all their problems out there where, oh, no problems. I mean, examples where I can start using and maybe give it a shot. Probably. I mean.
So the key is that you have to define your problem quite well defined.
Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you cannot take a problem like how do we make how do I become better at making my homework, or how do I do better schoolwork, or how do we make the university better? These are way too big problems. Mm-hmm. It has to be either you can separate your problem in time sequences, situations, objects, or areas of space, for example. These are good ways to do it. So, for example, if you want to, let's say, rethink a study hall, or if you go home to study something, and you or you want to rethink the way students would prepare the classes or going into classes, then you can rethink. You can focus on the first 30 seconds students enter a classroom. Mm. What can we change in that situation? Those 30 seconds, what can we change about them to make it easier to get started with the classroom? And now you can go into all other kinds of situations where people enter a room and see how is that? For example, in a theater, what happens there? In a cinema, okay, there are some commercials that the light is dimmed. There's a special atmosphere. People don't shout and scream and walk around. There's some things that change the way they are prepared more for the cinema, the movie when it starts, or any other kind of situation where people enter a room and see how is that situation, and can we steal something from that and put into the university context the 30 seconds. Does it make sense? So it has to be quite limited, the problem, in order to be able to take or steal inspiration from other situations.
And we can apply that just for anything. I mean, being more specific and then look to another bigger kind of, well, you say IKEA
Profession.
and, sorry?
Profession or industry.
Okay. Or industry, thank you, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or even just a company, it could be.
Okay, so that's pretty good. I mean, I'm gonna use it. And for example, how can we inspire others to I repeat this a lot, but to think differently? I mean, just saying at work, you know, how can we, if we feel like, okay, we are already thinking about innovating, thinking about being different, about trying something new to get a different result, well, how can we inspire people around us? Like, what do you think we can do?
I love this question, but it's also a complex question, and it points in so many directions. And so, first of all, we can point towards the value of creativity, of course. So what are the main values of creativity? Like recently, for the first time ever, PISA, OECD's assessment of schools in about, I think, 80 countries around the world. PISA tests comparing how good students are in Denmark with Sweden and Vietnam, or I don't know, all the countries that are in. And I don't know if Mexico or
I
United
think we
States or
do,
these
yeah.
kind of countries are with it. But I think actually Mexico is. But this is the first time they have tested how creative are young people coming out of school in these countries, and trying to give them a test on that. And of course, it creates a debate in the educational settings and in the societies about the importance of creativity in education. I think one of the most important things to point towards is its role for democracy. That's a more societal perspective. Like we know from history that some of the most influential people in history, like the creative people, are some of the most influential people in history. Like you can have a lot of influence if you have political power. You can have a lot of influence if you have resources, or access to resources, or have a famous last name, or famous if you're famous for something, a YouTuber or something. But you can also be very influential and have a lot of power if you are highly creative. If you challenge current ways of anything, like raising kids, what you eat for dinner, how you spend your weekends, new products, whatever, and you persuade others to follow these ideas, then you're changing the world, and you are changing it to align more with what you believe in, of course. And therefore, you affect how other people live their lives and what they buy, how they raise their kids, and all these things. So creative people are quite influential, powerful. That's a very personal approach, value, of course. But it also gives a lot of democracy, like a societal value, because the more power you can give to the people, the more empowered they become. And creative people will start changing local problems. They will engage in society and try to make it better when they see a problem, something that doesn't fit in their local school or local community. They'll engage in it, trying to come up with new ideas and implement them and persuade people to follow them. Slowly innovating society. So from a societal point of view, it makes sense to make democracy work, get people out on the streets doing something about the problems that are in societies. From a personal point of view, it gives you power. From a business, economical point of view, of course, it's often considered as the engine for innovation. But very often, I think one of the things that are not talked so much about is how creativity is, let's say, from a team perspective, not the company, not the nation, but on a local team, like 5, 10, 25 people in a team. Here it makes sense also in the culture it creates. It's more nice to be in a culture of curiosity and open-minded colleagues. But it also gives you a better foundation for decision making in general problem solving on everyday basis. Because this one is the last value, but try to follow it. If you're working on a problem and you get few ideas, let's say a standard brainstorming session, 5, 8 ideas, something like that. Research study shows that the few ideas we get, the more confident we are that one of them is a good idea. And sometimes we even have this experience that there's probably not more solutions than the ones we've come up with already. But it also shows that the more ideas you get, when you get beyond the first, let's say 5, 8, 10 ideas, then you become less confident that the first were good, not good at all. And the interesting thing is that when we do standard problem solving, we are not very perseverant. So we get one idea that's bad, second idea even worse, third idea a little bit better, but it's not really going to work. The fourth idea, it's going to work. It's great. It's so much better than these, and it will work. It will solve the problem. Then in standard problem, this makes sense to stop, start implementing. Don't waste any more time being creative. But in creative thinking, we are curious if the fifth idea is better. If the 6th, 7th, 8th, what about 24th idea? Is that even better? And eventually you'll come with maybe 3, 4, 5 good ideas, maybe 40 different or bad ideas. But at least you have 4 ideas that are good. And now you have a better foundation for decision making. Because if you only have one good idea to choose between, you have the worst possible foundation for decision making. But if you get more good ideas, then the one idea would be evaluated against bad ideas, so of course it's good. But if you have four good, the first idea would be evaluated against three other good ideas, and therefore you start looking for the nuances and see the differences in potential between the good ideas. So it gives you a better foundation for decision making on all kinds of problems you're working on, particularly the important problems where you want to invest time in creative thinking.
Oh wow. I love how you passionate talk about it. Okay, so decision is different to just creative thinking. It's what you're saying, kind of.
No, I think
decision making.
if you're more perseverant, creative, if you're curious
Okay.
for more ideas, if you're more stubborn, like you want to keep on being more creative in a problem solving session,
Okay.
or over a longer period of time working on a problem, then you tend to get more good ideas simply because you get more ideas, and more of them will be good. So instead of just
Okay.
having one good, you actually have the opportunity to choose for real, not just between one good and bad, but between good ideas, more good ideas.
Okay.
So these are some of the values I think that are important to think about or communicate in order to make people understand the value of creativity in different kind of settings. And I also, so I've worked a lot with creativity in education. One of the things for example, I created something called Idea Club for schools. So it's a program where schools could sign up, and then the kids would be sent a program every 3 weeks with challenges that were related to the subject in schools, but they were kind of creative challenges. For example, draw the ninth planet. We don't know if there's such one, but try to draw it and explain how these colors or this size really make sense in a physics. Or try to invent a new animal. Of course, that's physics, but try to invent a new animal on let's say in Africa, between the lion and the giraffe in the food chain, but reverse. So something that wins against the lion, but lose against the giraffe. And in order to come up with such an animal, you have to really understand, how does a lion work? What are the features? Maybe it has a soft paw. And then the features of the giraffe, they have a very strong hoe. And then you can create an animal that can punch through the power of the lion with some poison, but will be crushed by the hoe of the giraffe. And in that way, you have come up with a completely new animal. But it's biology. You're playing with your knowledge about it, and that is fun. At least for some, it's fun. It's a fun way to play with the knowledge from the subjects in education, and I think that's also a value. It makes learning more fun at playing with the knowledge you have and trying to put it into new situations and understand it from different perspectives.
Okay, and back a little bit to this answer. You were talking about democracy, about the countries, and from your experience and workshops that you held worldwide, would you say culture impacts creativity, and why?
Yeah, it does. It does. So I have been. I've seen it in some situations. It's not my field of research, so I've not done studies on it, but I have tested people around the world on creativity, and I've taught creativity to people from around the world. One of the most interesting situations I've been in is that I've been working for SDC University in Beijing for many years. And SDC University is interesting because it has 15 European students and 15 Chinese students from all around China, not just Beijing area. So every cohort, every year, these are master students. My students were on an innovation management program, Master of Science, Innovation Management. but we had other programs as well. But the, testing those and teaching those creativity showed clear. Maybe it's not cultural, maybe it's not country specific, but definitely there's something to it between Europe and China, and it's probably a mix of country, culture, maybe language, even linguistic. I don't know. There may be something to it. So my experience is like this: if you are more structured, and you are more maybe some would define it as respect for authority in China is higher than in Europe. Like in Europe, you maybe find that students don't bother listening, and they say swear words in front of the teachers, and they would say, "Hey, professor, please, I'm run out of pens. Can you give me one?" While in a Chinese context, that would be a very different way of asking questions, like, "Dear professor, can I please leave the room to find a pencil? Or can I borrow one from you?" So but not just in the way you approach and talk to a professor, but also in the way if the professor says, "These are the 4 steps you go through to solve this problem," then it's more likely Chinese students would actually try these 4 steps and do them, and then afterwards evaluate whether it was a good idea. While European students, to a high degree, probably challenge it. This doesn't make sense to my knowledge and experience. I won't follow these 4 steps. I maybe follow step 1 and 3, but step 2 and 4, I don't believe in. I'll do something different there. And that is, so you could say that the European spirit is more free and critical and challenging authority, challenging standards, which is a character of creativity, and probably can lead to creativity sometimes. And then again, you would say that if you can follow the creative steps of an effective creative process, and if you can do it together as a team, then it's also a very valuable thing, and it can take you to very much higher levels of temporary creative enhancement as a team, because creativity is a mix of individual and social or team processes. You cannot just think like personal creative preferences don't always work in team settings. For example, my best colleague for many years, his personal creative approach involves walking along in a natural reserve, along in the nature. And that's where he gets his great ideas. I sit in a jacuzzi, steam bath, walking forth and back between those two. And when I bring him into the jacuzzi and steam bath, he cannot really work in it. That creative process that doesn't work for him. And when he brings me to that natural reserve, I look for shit from cows, and I scratch myself for the animals biting me and stuff like that, and I cannot get focused in that environment. And these are 2 extreme examples. But if you always take part in your personal creative approach, it becomes difficult to really be creative with other people. So the example given, the Chinese students were far better at working together, creative as a team. The Europeans were maybe better at having their personal approach to creativity, but sometimes lacked really accepting that sometimes team processes, they require a team process, not your personal process. Something that you could be more creative alone, but we have to be creative together, and you have to take into account some of my experience, some of my perspectives, some of my knowledge, and therefore we have to be creative, both of us, in this setting. So I'm not saying the ones are more creative than the others, but I say there may be a difference in the way you more easily can approach creativity. So some cultures, more collective cultures, would maybe find it more easy to actually be creative following more advanced creative process methods for team creativity, while more individualistic cultures maybe find it more easy to develop their personal process, understanding how they work creatively alone, and actually be creative alone more, and then maybe not think of team creativity as something where you produce ideas, but more something where you present and share and elaborate on each other's ideas. This is not a recommendation, but it's an observation that I've noticed in cultures. I've observed quite a lot more, and quite interesting one that I would like to dig deeper into in the future.
It is because
Did it make sense?
it does. Because for me, for example, I lived outside of Mexico for years, and coming back and wanted my students to be to start thinking differently. I find it a little bit hard because I was in Canada for years, and I noticed exactly what you're saying, the difference between your example, which is Beijing and Europe. And individually they work and they like to think differently. And here I'm having a hard time trying to encourage these guys to think out of the box, but I want them to do it. So that was a perfect example, and now I know what to do. And well, to close this interview, could you give us some words to inspire and encourage creativity and innovation for everybody? Well, I like to specifically hear for our students, for our teachers. What can you share with us?
Can you just repeat it again?
Okay,
Just
yeah.
shortly.
Just if you could share some words to inspire.
Oh, words to inspire.
Now they can like, okay, I'm gonna give it a shot. Maybe.
Okay. Okay. It will actually relate a little bit back to what we talked about before because I can 2012.
Okay.
Together with a colleague, started up a program called Creative Genius. So it was a 5 month, it was a full semester on master level, where students from all kind of programs, we had 36 different study programs visiting, students from these programs visiting from many different countries. But they spent half a year trying to become more creative in their field of study. So it was a kind of specialization. Some of these, this is not, maybe it's culture, maybe it's personality traits. Some of these were fascinated by trying to come up with something extremely novel, like something nobody had thought about before. Okay, let me give you an example. One of them was writing novels for competitions about science fiction, specifically coming up with ideas for how you move in space from, let's say, planet Earth to a planet, I don't know, very far away. You know, there's hypersleep, I think it's called, or something. There are different kind of ideas in science fiction novels about how you can how you move these many years without getting older, or something like that, or getting tired, or getting psychotic. So he was engaged in all these competitions and really did everything he could during this semester to try to become more novel, more original in his way of thinking. Other students, for example, they tried to, they were more interested in this space. You know, when you are creative, you have this feeling of being connected with other people. You get positive. You get some people talk about it as optimal states of mind, and these very positive emotions related to being so focused that you lose track of time, space. You don't think about other worries. You're just so focused on what you're doing when you're creative. And this is also a very interesting thing for some people to try to dig deeper into. How do I get to that mode of being, mode of thinking? So these are two extremely different purposes of getting more creative. But there are many more, of course. But I would say that creative is such a natural human aspect. You probably have done it many times in your life, and everybody has, of course. But if you can find that thing that you like about being creative, like this thing about having the idea that everybody else loves, getting this inspirational thought leader status, or having these great experiences being creative on your own or together with other people, it's like, wow, that was a really crazy process we had there. Or what else you feel or want to be in or want to produce when you're creative. That is, I think, what typically gets people to practice and stimulate their own creativity more. And one last word here, because the last 1.5 years I focused a lot on AI creativity, and I've seen extreme cases of originality, meaningful ideas, and flexibility in how for example, ChatGPT can be created. Not the open access one, but the pro version, the GPT-4. It's amazing, and it's most people will not be able to be as creative as this type of AI without stimulation, without training, without process. So maybe an inspirational thought can also be about you can get a pal, a friend, a buddy, or whatever you call it, in AI to be creative, and it can help you become more creative, be creative in particular situations and particular problems. And it's a safe space. What we have always had trouble with in creativity is these judgmental thoughts. Just when you sit together with a friend and you tell them a great idea you love, and they do like this, then you don't tell them the next great idea you have. And this has been a major issue in social contexts, with even between friends, colleagues, student fellows, and stuff. And you don't have that with AI. I'm not saying just get friends with AI only, but I'm saying this is a safe space. It's like a sandbox place where you can be playful with ideas, get somebody to bring their perspectives in, help elaborate the idea, explore the idea without any fear of judgment. And that is just great for a lot of people.
Okay. Well, Christian, we have to finish this interview. Our time is over. Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge. I can keep listening for hours. Thank you so much. And well, I think that'll be everything, right? Well, thank you, Christian.
Thank you. And thank you for today.